Hello and welcome to Just Therapist Things, where we talk all things therapy. My name is Jordan and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist from sunny California. I currently work at a private practice where we focus on child anxiety reduction, and I also work for a nonprofit cancer support organization. Thanks for listening. Disclaimer, this podcast episode is just for entertainment purposes, not meant to be used to diagnose and treat real people. Overdiagnosing is a big issue, so I'm only analyzing and diagnosing based on how the character presents on television or in a movie, and if it warrants a diagnosis in my professional opinion. Trigger warning, in this episode, I do discuss difficult subject materials such as suicidality, racism, sexism, among other things, so listen at your own discretion. Today's episode is about the famous Michael Scott from the popular comedy The Office. The Office aired on NBC in 2005 and ran for 9 successful seasons with 201 episodes. Now you can watch The Office on Peacock, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV. Definitely watch The Office if you need a good laugh. It is a lot of people's go-to feel-good default show, but also be aware that there is a lot of dark humor. The Office follows a group of coworkers at a local paper and printer company called Dunder Mifflin in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Michael Scott is the regional manager at this company, and let's just say he does not create the most typical workplace environment. The Dunder Mifflin team has wild, hilarious, and inappropriate experiences while working there. Michael Scott had a tough upbringing with a lack of friends, a lot of loneliness, and subsequent estrangement from his family in adulthood. He did not attend college, and he says that he became a salesman to, quote-unquote, make friends. He became regional manager at a young age, and he shows a lack of common sense and inability to manage finances and really does not know how to cultivate a safe, healthy work environment. Michael is known for his exaggerated emotions and his catchphrase, "That's what she said," that transpired among all 9 seasons, and which is, well, yeah. So here is an audio of Michael's inappropriateness in the workplace.
Some guy exposed himself to Phyllis in the parking lot.
Really? Is she okay?
Yeah, Bob Vance took her for a walk to calm down.
Okay. Phyllis, you say?
What is so funny?
Did you even see Pam? Or, Karen from behind?
I'm guessing not.
I'm sorry. It's pretty funny when you think about it.
Oh, not really, no.
It's disgusting and demeaning.
Oh, okay. Masters of comedy. A guy dropped his pants. Have you ever been to the circus?
As you can hear, Michael is an HR nightmare. He is clearly not a typical boss. He's very inappropriate with coworkers and is sexually explicit. I totally agree that yes, this is funny. This makes for a great show, but his behavior is really not okay when you think of his portrayal as an actual manager of a company. Part of his wild behavior is that he thinks his coworkers are his friends or buddies and that he is closer to them than he really is, especially with women. Because of this, he often says really inappropriate things, such as this audio in the workplace, and he comes off as extremely misogynistic with women, and he has also had little success in romantic relationships. So Michael displays inconsistent behavior, dramatic swings in his reactions and mood, from depressed to overly excited, and he seeks a lot of attention. His well-being is often put before the needs of the company, and his personality traits do interfere with his ability to be a good manager. In one instance, he dramatized that his birthday was of more importance than a coworker's cancer scare, and when he has a problem, like when he burned his foot on his like bedroom waffle maker or whatever that episode was. He feels like it's the responsibility of the entire company to be a part of and that he needs to be taken care of by his employees. He is also very suggestible and he's been taken advantage of by pyramid schemes, by business associates, and by romantic partners. Here is an audio clip of Michael's attention-seeking behavior where in this clip he is actually standing on a roof and yelling at his coworkers from the roof and telling everyone to go out and listen to him. So here's this clip.
Oh, my life!
Michael, what's wrong?
Everything's wrong! The stress of my modern office has caused me to go into a depression.
Depression? Isn't that just a fancy word for feeling bummed out?
Dwight, you ignorant slut. Depression is a very serious illness. Over 32,000 people commit suicide every year, according to a 2004 study.
Is that the last year that data was available?
Yes, my head is in such pain and turmoil.
Don't do anything rash.
Dwight, where are the warehouse guys?
I didn't think you needed them for this part.
Okay,
You said to just...
that's the whole point, dummy.
Okay, I'm on it.
Okay?
So in this audio, you can clearly hear that Michael is using words such as depression and mental health words to elicit a response from his coworkers. And he created this whole scene with Dwight helping him in order to prove a point. The coworkers' faces during this scene clearly show that this is not unusual behavior for their boss, so they just kind of roll their eyes and think, oh, well, that's just Michael. So yeah, clearly abnormal, inappropriate behavior, especially for a manager of a company and the leader of a team. Michael definitely lacks social awareness, but he's interesting because he also seems to be inappropriate on purpose. And he seems to be very full of himself, but he also is lonely and wants close relationships. So he's kind of a really interesting character to diagnose, but there is definitely something there. And through research, I have seen so many potential diagnoses for Michael. So, first, let's talk about rule outs, and then I will share what I think Michael's diagnosis and treatment plan should be. So, the first rule out for Michael is borderline personality disorder, or BPD. BPD is categorized by extreme fears of perceived or real abandonment, which lead to dramatic mood swings and behaviors. So, at first listen, this sounds like it really could be a contender for Michael because he did have difficulties in childhood and with his family, so that could be the perceived or real abandonment. And he does have dramatic mood swings and behaviors. He also shows an inability to maintain relationships. He's impulsive, and he does talk about depression and suicide, which are all indicators of possible BPD. I, however, ruled it out. It just doesn't feel like it's the right fit for a diagnosis because although there's talk of suicide, there are no actual recurrent attempts of suicide or self-harm. It really just seems like it is for attention-seeking behavior purposes. And he also shows no dissociation or paranoia, and he doesn't have great difficulty controlling anger, which are all some criteria of borderline personality disorder. So with borderline, you have to meet 9 criteria for this diagnosis. And I think he meets maybe, 4, let's say. So doesn't quite meet all the criteria. So I do think that another diagnosis is more fitting. The next thing that I considered is narcissistic personality disorder. This was a big one throughout my research that everyone was saying, oh yeah, Michael has NPD. So narcissistic personality disorder is a cluster B personality disorder, and it is defined in the DSM as comprising a pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, a constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. NPD usually shows up by young adulthood. So Michael definitely shows grandiosity. He definitely has a need for admiration and a sense of entitlement. So these all align with NPD criteria. However, he doesn't really, I don't think, have a lack of empathy or preoccupation with success or power or exploitative behavior. And these are all criteria of NPD as well. So I would love to hear if anyone would like to message me or put in the comments of this episode. I would love to hear what others think about him having a lack of empathy or preoccupation with success or power. This was one that I definitely struggled with, and I did have to do research on just how these factors of NPD present themselves in different people. And I can kind of see it that there's maybe a little bit of a lack of empathy just because of his racist and sexist remarks, and he definitely lacks that social awareness. He also has that sense of entitlement, so there could be that preoccupation with success or power. So I can kind of see it, but I don't know if I just have a soft spot for Michael, but I really just think he's this misunderstood guy, this lonely guy who just wants connection and friends, and he's just going about it in a really inappropriate way. So for these reasons, I am ruling out NPD. Something else that was really interesting that I actually didn't consider fully until I saw that other people have guessed that this could be Michael's disorder is another diagnosis that I did not really consider until I saw online that a lot of people were saying that Michael could have this diagnosis, but this is autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. And people online are saying that this could be due to his lack of social awareness, his creative energy, and his lack of awareness of what others are thinking or feeling. It is also seen multiple times throughout the seasons that he really does not have a filter. He cannot keep a secret. And these are all potential signs of ASD as well. So for ASD, the DSM diagnosis has two parts of ASD. Part one is persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts. So challenges in social communication, social interaction. And part two is restricted repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities. A subset of part one of the ASD diagnosis is abnormal social approach or a failure to initiate or respond to social interactions. And it really does not seem like Michael shows that. He does initiate social interactions, he responds. He does have an abnormal social approach, but it's mainly just inappropriate. It's not, I don't think, because he has a challenge with that necessarily. And another subset is a challenge in nonverbal communication. So abnormalities in eye contact and body language or of understanding gestures, or also lack of facial expressions and other nonverbal communication. And Michael does not really show that. He has nonverbal communication and he can't really read people too well, it seems like, but I don't think that's because of a challenge that he has. I think it's because of a personality situation that's going on. So that is why I'm ruling out autism spectrum disorder. And I am diagnosing Michael Scott with histrionic personality disorder. So, histrionic personality disorder shows more often in females than males, but I still think that it's a pretty good representation of what's happening, and it does show up in males. So, here we go. It is expressed most often in the adult years, and people with this personality disorder often come from a family history of neglect or lack of attention from primary caregivers. So, that definitely fits Michael Scott, that his parents were divorced when he was young. And of course, that doesn't mean that there was any neglect, but it seems like in his case, there was some loneliness, some abandonment. And he does have a resentment towards his sister and his stepfather. He didn't talk to them for years, and he's not super close to his mom. So that all fits with histrionic personality disorder of what the history of the person usually shows. Histrionic personality disorder shows up as exaggerated emotions and reactions. It is the inability to keep relationships and seeking attention. And all of these things, as I talked about previously, are things that Michael struggles with. So, doesn't really have friends. He thinks he's closer to people than he really is. And he also definitely is an attention seeker. Another factor of histrionic personality disorder is the elevated sense of self and dramatic shifts in emotions. That definitely happens with Michael. He has expectations of close bonds with coworkers, and he has big exaggerated reactions to certain life circumstances, so definitely rapidly shifting emotions. And he also talks about his personal life at inappropriate times, and so that kind of goes with the attention seeking behavior as well. So, another part of histrionic personality disorder is that the person is suggestible or easily influenced and also hypersensitive to criticism. So, these are actually all traits that Michael has shown throughout the seasons, that he is suggestible, that he is sensitive to criticism, that he does seek reassurance from others. So, these are all criteria that go with histrionic personality disorder. And for a diagnosis of this disorder, the DSM requires meeting 5 or more of the behaviors of the criteria that I just mentioned. And Michael definitely meets 5 plus of those. So I definitely think that he has a diagnosis of histrionic personality disorder. I also think that there is a co-occurring diagnosis. And I think that there is something going on. I think that Michael is neurodivergent in some way. And I don't think it's with ASD, but I think that it is with ADHD, so attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I think that ADHD could definitely be co occurring with histrionic personality disorder because Michael does show hyper focus, hyperactivity, and distractibility. So there's definitely ADHD tendencies. And also the lack of social skills or social awareness. This is something that is pretty typical of someone who is neurodivergent. While there is no excuse for some of the things that Michael does or says, some of it I think definitely comes from a place of wanting to belong or just not really knowing the rules of social interactions. And this is something that many neurotypical people inherently pick up on. So, my official diagnosis for Michael Scott of The Office is histrionic personality disorder with co occurring ADHD. So, how do we treat histrionic personality disorder and ADHD so that Michael Scott can be his best self? Well, in most cases, people with this personality disorder don't believe that they have this disorder or don't believe that their behaviors are problematic. So, this makes treatment really, really difficult. Also, sometimes people with this disorder, they tend to exaggerate their feelings or they do things in therapy to seek attention. And so this also makes treatment really, really difficult. However, medications such as antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication has shown to help and just kind of help the person's availability to think about their thinking, to handle their dramatic mood swings and things like that. There is also some forms of therapy that are definitely recommended. So, group therapy can be particularly beneficial, especially if it's a group of other people who have this same personality disorder, because it can kind of help that person to see their behavior in someone else. So, they have more buy in that it actually is something, it's a disorder that they're struggling with. So, that could be helpful. Also, cognitive behavioral therapy is really helpful because it is necessary to manage emotional outbursts and learn how your thoughts and your feelings and behaviors are all connected. And someone can learn healthier coping skills and healthier ways to manage emotion. And of course, then there is psychodynamic or just talk therapy, which does self-reflection and looks back on childhood and kind of heals the inner child in that way. So that could also be very useful for someone with this disorder. And to treat ADHD, I think that Michael could really benefit from learning some skills on how to manage his hyperactivity and how to focus on tasks. And I think that this would help him be a better boss for everyone. So just learning those skills through behavioral treatment or through executive functioning coaching, something like that, just to treat kind of the little ADHD focused behaviors. But he also could take some ADHD medication as well. That is all I have for you today on the famous Michael Scott from The Office. If anyone has any thoughts, questions, comments, please feel free to leave comments on the episode comment section or reach out to me via social media. Thanks for being here. If anyone listening is struggling with their mental health, please call 988 or 911 to get help, reach out to loved ones, and know that you are not alone. Thank you for listening to Just Therapist Things, and I will talk to you soon.